Why do some of the smartest people you know start doing things that make absolutely no sense after 40? They cancel plans at the last minute. They sit in their car for 10 minutes before going inside the house. They reorganize the same drawer 3 times in 1 week. They wake up at 5 a.m. just to have silence. And if you ask them why, they can't explain it. They don't have a reason. They just feel like they need to do it. Now most people look at this and think something is wrong. They think it's laziness. They think it's depression. They think it's just what happens when you get older. But here's the thing. That's not what's happening. Not even close. And what's actually going on behind these so-called strange habits is something that most people will never understand. But you will. By the end of this video, you'll see this in a completely different way, and you might even realize you've been doing it yourself. See, there's a very common mistake people make when they watch someone change after 40. They assume the person is falling apart. They assume something went wrong, but the truth is the opposite. The person didn't break. The mask did. For 20, 30, sometimes 40 years, that person performed. They smiled when they didn't feel like smiling. They said yes when everything inside them screamed no. They showed up for everyone. Every single time. They were the reliable one, the strong one, the one who never complained. And after decades of doing that, something starts to shift inside them. Not because they're weak, but because they finally started listening to themselves. And pay close attention to this part, because this is where everything changes. Think about a woman who spent 25 years being everything for everyone. She raised kids. She supported her husband. She helped her aging parents. She gave everything she had at work. And one day, she starts going to bed at 8 p.m. Her family thinks something is wrong. Her friends say she's changed. But nothing is wrong. That hour is the only hour of the entire day that belongs to her. The only 60 minutes where nobody is asking for anything. Where she doesn't have to perform, where she doesn't have to smile, where she can just exist. Now think about a man in his 50s. He built a good career. He has a nice house. People respect him. And suddenly, he starts taking the long way home after work. Every day, 20 extra minutes. His wife notices. His kids wonder what's going on. But he's not doing anything wrong. Those 20 minutes in the car are the only minutes in his entire day where nobody needs anything from him. No phone calls, no decisions, no responsibilities, just the road, just the quiet, just him. Now from the outside, both of these look like strange habits, odd behavior, something to worry about. But from the inside, those habits are keeping them alive. And this is more common than most people think. There's a detail here that almost nobody notices. These habits don't show up randomly. They don't just appear out of nowhere. They appear at a very specific moment in a person's life. They show up when someone has spent so many years giving to others that they have absolutely nothing left for themselves. That drawer they keep organizing, that's not about the drawer. That's the only thing in their entire life they can still control. When everything around them feels heavy and chaotic and unpredictable, that drawer makes sense. That drawer has order. That drawer responds the way they want it to. And that feeling of control, even if it's just socks and old batteries, resets something in their mind. The plans they keep canceling, that's not rudeness. That's not disrespect. That's a nervous system that is completely overloaded. Their brain has been processing other people's emotions for so long that the idea of sitting across from someone and performing one more time feels physically exhausting. It's not that they don't care, it's that they're full. And the silence they start craving, the early mornings, the long showers, the walks alone, that's not isolation. That's their mind begging for space. Space to think, space to feel, space to remember who they are without a role attached to their name. Now here's what most people completely miss, and this is important. These are not signs of weakness. These are signs of intelligence, real intelligence. Let me explain why. Because behind all of this behavior, there's a psychological pattern that changes everything. When a highly intelligent person spends years absorbing the problems and emotions of everyone around them, something happens inside their brain. The brain starts creating small rituals, little habits that bring a tiny sense of order to the chaos, a sense of control, a brief moment of peace. It's not a malfunction. It's a strategy. Their mind is literally building tiny shelters, safe zones inside their daily routine where the noise stops and they can finally breathe. That's why they rearrange furniture at midnight when the house is quiet. That's why they start taking longer showers than they used to. That's why they become very particular about how their morning looks. The same coffee, the same chair, the same order, every single day. It's not obsession, it's protection. Their brain figured out that if it builds a small pocket of predictability, the rest of the chaos becomes manageable. And the reason this starts happening more after 40 is actually very simple. By the time you reach 40 or 50, you've already learned something that younger people haven't figured out yet. You've learned that the world is not going to protect you. Nobody is coming to ask how you really feel. Nobody is going to knock on your door and say, "You've done enough. You can stop now. It's your turn." That's not going to happen. And once you realize that, something shifts. You stop waiting for permission, and you start building your own version of peace, quietly, without announcing it, without asking anyone to understand. You just start doing it, and to everyone else, it looks strange. But to you, it feels like the first honest thing you've done in years. Now here's the part that might surprise you. These same people, the ones with the strange habits, the ones who cancel plans and crave silence and organize drawers at midnight, they're usually the strongest people in the room. They're the ones everyone calls when there's a problem. They're the ones who hold everything together when life falls apart. They're the ones who show up every single time for everyone else. And nobody, not a single person around them, realizes that the reason they need those small, quiet rituals is because they carry more weight than anyone can see. Think about that for a second. The person who needs 10 minutes alone in the car is not fragile. They're full of other people's emotions, full of responsibilities that were never fully theirs, full of years and years of being the one who never broke down. And those little habits they developed, that's not them falling apart. That's them putting themselves back together every single day, quietly, without anyone knowing. There's actually a name for this in psychology. It's called emotional self-regulation through micro-rituals, and it is one of the most intelligent things a human brain can do. Instead of exploding, instead of shutting down completely, instead of falling apart in front of everyone, the mind creates a system, small quiet habits that reset the nervous system, that lower the emotional pressure, that restore a sense of self, that remind the person who they really are underneath all the roles they've been playing for decades. The mother, the father, the provider, the problem solver, the strong one. Underneath all of that, there is still a person. And those rituals, those strange little habits, that's the only time that person gets to exist. And here is the most powerful part. Most people who do this don't even realize they're doing it. They think they're just being weird. They feel guilty for wanting time alone. They apologize for canceling plans. They wonder what's wrong with them. They compare themselves to how they used to be and think they're broken. But nothing is wrong. Nothing is broken. In fact, everything is finally working the way it should. Because for the first time in maybe 20 or 30 years, their mind is choosing them. Not the job, not the family expectations, not the responsibilities, not the performance. Them, just them. And that is not strange. That is not a flaw. That is growth. That is what emotional intelligence looks like when it finally stops performing for the world and starts protecting the person who lives inside. So if you're watching this right now and you recognize yourself in what I just said, if you're the one who sits in the car before going inside, If you're the one who needs the house completely quiet before you can even think. If you're the one who started doing things that nobody around you understands. Don't apologize. Don't fight it. Don't let anyone make you feel like something is wrong with you. That's not a problem. That is your mind finally doing for you what you've spent your whole life doing for everyone else. Taking care of you. And honestly, that might be the most important thing you ever allow yourself to do. If this made sense to you, hit the like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and tell me in the comments what's your strange habit, the one nobody around you understands, the one that gives you peace even though you can't fully explain why. I want to hear it, because I know for a fact you're not the only one. But listen, there's something else that happens after this. Something deeper. There's a pattern that shows up quietly in people who've carried everything alone for years, and it explains why some of them suddenly start cutting off relationships that look perfectly fine from the outside. Almost nobody talks about this, but we will in the next video.